Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Beithak podcast. I'm your host GD and joining me once again today is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we'll be talking about the Hungarian GP coming up next weekend. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready our opinions and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant. Midway mark of the Formula 1 2021 season. Next weekend, going into the summer break. I wouldn't say lots of storylines coming out of the British GP, but definitely some important storylines coming out of the British GP. The most important of them being the 1.8 million pound or 1.8 million dollar damage cost to Verstappen's car that Red Bull has to, basically use up over the course of the season. But the ramifications that that cost will have on Red Bull and on their title challenge, on Max's title challenge. For the 2021 season. What are your thoughts on them?
I mean, it's definitely a big blow for Red Bull, and especially in the first season of cost caps this season, and all the teams are just trying to get hold of it. And added to that, we have a new set of regulations next season, so it's a lot of variables this season in terms of cost itself. And we have I think the engine is also a major issue, whether it would have to be replaced or everything like that. And 1.8 million is a lot of money. I mean, it's an entire car. Even Valtteri Bottas's car
that costed Mercedes a million pounds, I think.
Exactly.
Back in Imola.
Exactly, and I mean it's going to be a big blow for Red Bull, no doubt about
Absolutely,
that.
and I think the biggest one is that of this season because going into next season we don't know where the cars will be or how much they'll be developed or what will the end pecking order will be in 2022. But we know that Red Bull is in the middle of a championship fight this season, and we want to see them win. So obviously, like you said, maybe if any of those six components of the power unit are damaged and have to be replaced, that will put Verstappen on the bubble of getting grid penalties when using more than allocated number of those components, the power unit components. It might end up that Red Bull cannot develop the car as much because of the cost cap. It might end up that Sergio Perez might not get the newest parts, the newest upgrades because of this damage. And I could even see Red Bull, protesting the damage because at the end of the day, Lewis was penalized for basically the racing incident, for the crash, and for the entirety of it, and for Verstappen basically putting Verstappen out of the race. So Red Bull could definitely go to the FIA and argue that hey, this was someone else's fault, this is not my driver's fault. So either Mercedes compensate or they are penalized, so that there's some balance of performance, if you want to put it that way. So there's some balance of performance during the course of this season and basically the next season. It basically doesn't give Mercedes an advantage in terms of cost by damaging Red Bull's car during a race.
Yeah, definitely. And I think going into the summer break, it's all these little smaller storylines that come into play, and the political aspect of Formula 1 just gets even more evolved during these 6 weeks.
Exactly, and I think one thing that we mentioned in a previous podcast was that the gloves are off. And I think another question that has been going around or making the rounds of social media has been, is the fact that we've reached the breaking point in the 2021 F1 season worth it? And by that, I guess what people are asking is it worth seeing Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton not give up anymore, not make any concessions and just be ruthless on track? Is it worth the risk? Is it worth, the Formula? Is it worth the entertainment that it will create for the Formula 1 community?
Well, that's...
And how do you think should these two drivers approach the rest of the season, considering that Max will be hungry to get back at Lewis at Hungary? Hopefully he'll be he'll be feeling much better. He'll be in great shape once again. It was a 51G crash, probably the second worst crash in the recent history. Grosjean's crash was 67 Gs back in Sakhir. So, hopefully he's doing really well and he's in great physical form to come back and have a great weekend. But, mentally, because Lewis has already made clear that he's not giving up anymore like he kind of did at the beginning of the season in Imola, in Bahrain, and so on. Lewis is putting his foot down, and that was, Lewis's way this weekend to show Verstappen that he's not going to let Verstappen have it easy, and he's going to be just as aggressive as he can do. But yeah, like I said, how do you think Verstappen and Hamilton should approach the rest of this season, considering they both want to win the championship just as bad?
Well, it's a very difficult situation for both of them, and as you said, for us fans as well, because we know Max Verstappen does not give up at any point on the track, right? And Lewis Hamilton has made it a point that now, he has learned from his mistakes, essentially, and will not yield position and will not, break early for anyone, whether it be it Max Verstappen or, even if he's, fighting a back marker and overlapping them. So I don't think he's going to do that as well. And we have the cars today are super safe, and we have come a long way in terms of safety in Formula One. So I hope that nothing bad happens, and I'm sure nothing bad will happen. But as you said, the element of risk has just gone up, and I think it's going to be a physical season, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be, and it will be interesting. It will also be interesting to see, especially for the fans who love a bit of drama, how Toto Wolff and Christian Horner get along for the rest of the season. Because at the beginning, they were kind of chummy. They were, they had little jabs around Monaco, regarding what Lewis had said about Max and things like that, and they got involved. But things are getting serious now, and you might once again see Lewis Hamilton and Christian Horner butting heads for the rest of the season.
Well, talking. Sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah, go ahead, no problem.
Talking about Toto Wolff and Christian Horner taking things in their own hands and going head to head against each other. We have seen, the latest introduction in the team radio graphics, the FIA team, like the teams and FIA radio interchange, and I think that just shows you how little schoolboys these team principals are, because Toto Wolff emailed Michael Masi some regulations.
I think didn't Toto Wolff also go to the stewards after the race?
Yeah, Toto Wolff did go to the stewards,
and I think FIA issued a directive saying that if this happens again, there'll be some sort of penalty or disqualification for the teams or something like that.
Exactly, and Christian Horner said that I don't want to go to the stewards because it's their job, and he doesn't understand why Toto Wolff went there, and Toto Wolff sending that email, and these people constantly telling the stewards that, hey, this happened, and all these little things. So it was fun at first when we saw this graphic, and we saw banter between the teams and the teams complaining a lot and all these things. But now I've come to the feeling, and especially as this championship fight progresses, it just seems unprofessional in a way, or not up to the mark, because people are watching them and they are heroes for many people around the world, right?
I guess, but that goes to show what the reality of the situation is. But at the other point, you said it's. I'm not gonna talk a lot about heroes and how it shows the way it represents Formula One and these team principals as little schoolboys. That might just be the reality of the situation, and we saw that happen with Cyril Abiteboul and Red Bull, Christian Horner when Red Bull and Renault were separating. So we've seen this happen, and I think DTS does a great job of showing that anyway. Even if we don't see that graphic.
Yeah.
But I think my point comes back to the fact when you pointed out that the stewards are trying to do a job, and you have all these little things coming in from the team principals and things. But at the end of the day, we expect the stewards to do their job without bias, right? And if you let team principals and parties which basically have a vested interest in that situation, incident, whatever that matter is. And if you have them have a say during the race, how can you expect stewards to not be swayed or to not be frustrated with one way or the other? Because at the end of the day, if I'm Toto Wolff and I'm constantly badgering Michael Massey might just take a decision if he gets frustrated against my team.
Yeah,
We don't know, and we'll have to accept that decision. So I think, like you said, you pointed out, like this is probably crossing a line, and obviously we didn't know about all of this before that graphic came up, and before obviously Formula One let us into the paddock, Formula One and the teams the FIA let us into the stewards room and things like that, and gave us access to the communications, which is why the fans know how things are these days. But even if we didn't know, I think this is really like, as if I was a steward, although it's hard to imagine that, but if I was, trying to take a decision that would affect two parties, adversely, one more than the other or something like that, I would not want to hear from those parties unless it was, a moderated discussion, or, we were actually going over the incident in a very professional manner. Where the teams put in their thoughts and what they think should be done, and then I go and assess everything myself without any external input. So I think that maybe there needs to be some kind sort of limit, or some regulation or something that limits the amount of chatter team principals can have with Michael Massey, because over the course of the last year and a half we have really talked. We haven't talked well about Michael Massey a whole lot. We've looked at his mistakes time and again, and maybe this is something that bothers him. We don't know, so it'll be interesting to ask Michael Massey whether he would like this this chatter between him and the team principals to be curbed, and whether he would think that he could perform better if team principals and other people from the paddock did not bother him as much during the race.
yeah, definitely. And I mean, I was going to say this, that the stewards are already consistently inconsistent right now, and all these botherings and all these influencing can obviously affect the decisions even more. So as you said, there needs to be some sort of stance taken by the stewards themselves.
Absolutely. But going into the weekend, who's your favorite, Vedant? Was it Mercedes, or is it Red Bull? Is it Max Verstappen, or is it Lewis Hamilton, or is it Ferrari? Because like we remember in Monaco, there was a lot of talk that if Ferrari could carry the pace they showed in Monaco to Hungary, they might be in contention for a podium place, or maybe a win. Obviously, that seems like a far cry right now, considering how far Red Bull and Mercedes are from McLaren and Ferrari at the moment. But we've seen Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris, put it up there. Even Carlos Sainz for Ferrari. And if Carlos Sainz or Charles Leclerc were to put it on a podium this weekend, I would not be surprised, if I'm being really honest with you. And that might also that also might be my bias speaking at this moment, because I want to see Charles Leclerc get that win that he deserved in Silverstone.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. Ferrari can definitely put it up there. We have seen Charles Leclerc qualify very well this season, and it certainly won't be a surprise if he gets pole in Hungary. Also, Red Bull are quite good at Hungary, fundamentally.
Although Mercedes did win last year at Hungary, and in a commanding way. So because I think Max only qualified P7, and then he had to make his way through the field to finish
P2. Yeah, he finished second. But it was a wet race, and there were other characteristics. But historically speaking, Red Bull, Hungary, is a Red Bull circuit per se. But call me a cynic, and I'll be happy. But I want Lewis Hamilton to win this race, and Max Verstappen to come second, because, as I mentioned in the previous podcast, that result would nullify the entire first half of the season.
Absolutely.
They'll be at par on points, and we can have 2021 restart to the season in a way, and both the drivers can refresh their minds and refresh their goals and their agendas, and take a new approach if they want.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. It will definitely spice up the championship even more. I was gonna say something, but I just lost my train of thought here. Um, yeah, I was gonna talk about the Mercedes development. So obviously, Mercedes brought a lot of upgrades to Silverstone, but it seemed like most of those upgrades were at straight line speed or high
Yeah.
speed upgrades, especially considering the way Silverstone is a circuit. So I wonder if they have some of the upgrades for basically like a track with a lot of low speed, medium speed corners like Hungary, which is on like they don't have like a lot of high speed corners. It's usually a pretty slow circuit. So I wonder if Mercedes will be as fast at Hungary or whether they have upgrades specifically for this sort of circuit. And that'll be something interesting to see because Mercedes did not do well at all in Monaco. Was Bottas did, but Bottas did kind of put it up there, but he was nowhere near Charles Leclerc or Max Verstappen in that Red Bull and Ferrari. So it'll be interesting to see how Mercedes have developed, especially for Hungary. But again, I think we've talked about Mercedes, Red Bull, Max, and Lewis, but they're not the only things in that championship fight. The Perez and Bottas is playing just as important a role in that championship fight between Red Bull and Mercedes, between Max and Lewis. And what can we expect from both of them? Because both Perez and Bottas have had up and down season. Obviously, Perez came into the Red Bull team and he said, I need 5 races before I can put in a performance, and then he got a podium, which was great. And I think that was in Baku.
He
But
won
ever
in
since that,
Baku. He won in Baku.
Exactly, he won in Baku. And ever since then, it has been kind of sort of up and down. It hasn't been a very consistent performance. Perez did struggle last time out in Silverstone massively, whereas Bottas had a decent weekend. He was still nowhere near Lewis Hamilton or his performance, but comparatively, Bottas was still up there to pick the points. Pick up the points for Mercedes, which is what is needed from both the drivers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the drivers' championship fight is between Verstappen and Hamilton, but Perez and Bottas play the biggest role for the team's championship. I hope Perez can perform more consistently because if Perez does not perform consistently, he only has a 1-year contract right now, and I mean it won't be a surprise if Red Bull let go of him. And I honestly don't want to see that. I want Perez to stay in Formula One for a few more years. Valtteri Bottas, on the other hand, I mean, I have had mixed opinions of Valtteri Bottas throughout the years, but he has never shown, like, he has the Mercedes and he has won a few races, but for me he is not that driver that can perform even better. I mean, I think he is at his peak, so to say. I think Sergio Perez, over the course of the second half of the season, Sergio Perez might just edge out Valtteri Bottas.
It will definitely be interesting to see. But talking about Valtteri Bottas, there have been rumors recently that Valtteri Bottas is signing with Alfa Romeo. There hasn't been anything out of the Mercedes garage about Valtteri's contract. Obviously, Toto Wolff did say that they'll be deciding on their second driver over the summer break, so we might be hearing something very soon in the next couple of weeks, especially after the Hungarian GP. But Alfa Romeo seems like an unlikely place for Valtteri Bottas. We all expected Williams maybe, but Alfa is just something that doesn't fit right in my head, I'd say, because I just don't see Valtteri at Alfa Romeo. It doesn't seem like they don't have like a previous relationship per se.
Yeah.
And I don't think Alfa Romeo really want someone like Kimi Raikkonen again per se. Someone who's on the decline kind of, and who doesn't have that outright pace to put it up there with midfield teams like Alpine and Racing Point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if Valtteri Bottas wants to stay in Formula One, he needs to, like, he'll only get a seat in the bottom 3 teams per se, because every
So you're saying you're confident that Valtteri Bottas won't get a seat at Mercedes for 2022?
No. Yeah, I'm sorry. I put my words wrong there, but I mean, if Mercedes let go of Valtteri and if he wants to stay in Formula One for next season, I don't think any midfield team will pick him up. McLaren's, the Aston Martin, Alpine, all these teams, and Alfa Romeo seems the likely option because they are on the rise more than Williams and Haas per se. Like for Valtteri, it is a feasible option out of those three. But for Alfa Romeo, as you said, Valtteri is not the kind of person. I mean, firstly he's not a team leader. I don't see him leading the team eventually. And with Alfa Romeo, trying to break into that midfield group, I don't think Valtteri Bottas, and I might be too harsh on him, but I don't think he can perform well after racing for so many seasons in Red Bull, in Mercedes.
We've seen Valtteri Bottas struggle in the midfield when he gets stuck in the midfield in a Mercedes, and I don't even know what's going to happen when you put him in an Alpha. Moreover, considering if the rumors are even true, that Bottas is moving to Alpha, I think Bottas will be moving in place of Kimi, replacing his Finn friend there. But Antonio Giovinazzi and Valtteri Bottas are just not the duo that you want in that car. If you want to challenge for points in the championship, you probably want either a youngster or another, at least another driver who's trying to make it into Formula 1, or he's done well in the past and needs a second chance. Maybe someone who's been in Formula 1 before, like Alex Albon even. But Valtteri Bottas just doesn't seem like a good fit for Alpha. But we'll see how that story evolves after the Hungarian Grand Prix once the actual silly season starts for this season. But yeah, honestly, I don't see Valtteri Bottas in Alfa Romeo, but I might just be wrong because I have no idea what's going on there at the moment.
Yeah, it's a silly season, and we'll talk a lot about that in the coming few weeks.
Summer break.
So, yeah. But
exactly, but
going down the field, Fernando Alonso. I mean, I love talking about him, but
yeah, we all know that.
But so he has had a good few races, but recently he did an interview and he said that he's frustrated that his rivals have not been penalized correctly, and he'll try to change his approach to racing so that he can take the most out of that grey areas that the stewards leave. So I am excited to see a new and more competitive Fernando Alonso. What about you?
I mean, I'd say he's pretty competitive now, honestly. But if you can take it to another level, I'm all for it. Like I said in our previous podcast, I was skeptical about Fernando Alonso coming back to Formula 1. But then I did make the comment that if Mercedes or Red Bull wanted a left field choice for a short-term contract in order to challenge for a championship, Fernando Alonso should be their top choice in that case. So I'm all for it. But yeah, we've talked about Fernando Alonso, we've talked about Valtteri Bottas, Mercedes, Red Bull. But let's talk about our favorite Formula 1 driver on the grid, Lando Norris. That man is on a roll. 15 consecutive points finishes. I think the most for a McLaren driver, which is crazy when you think about the fact that Lewis Hamilton drove for McLaren, Fernando Alonso drove for McLaren, Ayrton Senna drove for McLaren. So many greats drove for McLaren for so long, and yet Lando Norris is the longest, has the longest streak for consecutive point finishes and going. Which just goes to show, like I said before, and I've said it multiple times now, I'll say it again because I'm not ashamed of it anymore. Lando Norris is the 2023 world champion. You mark my words, but you gotta give it to Lando, man. Like, his consistency has been top notch. And we've talked about this again. We've talked about George Russell and Charles Leclerc when they came into Formula 1 alongside Alex Albon. We talked about those three, but Lando Norris kind of slipped under the radar, and we were like, he's done well in the past, but we don't know what we can expect from him. But I think of the 4 people who graduated to Formula 1 from his class, he's probably the best in the game right now. And I'd rate him higher than Charles Leclerc in terms of, my trust for Lando Norris to finish in the points. Like, I wouldn't trust Charles Leclerc to finish in the points as often as Lando Norris, or to put in as good a performance starting up the grid, because Charles Leclerc, we know, is a little bit dicey. He puts in those risky moves. But Lando Norris has a calm and calculated head on his shoulders, and he's done exceptionally well this season. Now, obviously, the question is, can he keep that P3 place in the Drivers' Championship? Both Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez are hot on his heels, but not as consistent, which bodes well for the Britain.
Absolutely. And I mean, Lando Norris is always there to pick off the points that the Mercedes and Red Bull drop off. And I think I said this in first podcast after the testing, after winter testing, that if anyone can pick up those points that these top two teams, and McLaren are the prime candidates for it, Lando Norris is the prime candidate for it, they can really affect that championship battle itself. Because if they beat, like we have seen Lando Norris being cautious while fighting Perez and Bottas, not so cautious, but still maintaining his distance, so to say. But if he can beat Perez or Bottas on merit, on a good day, I think that might affect the championship a whole lot. And we know that Perez and Bottas are dropping points massively, and that just I think he can keep that P3.
Yeah, now that you talk about Norris affecting the championship, the other thing that I want to talk about was, do you think Red Bull and Mercedes will use their customer teams or junior teams as a part of their championship battle? Will Red Bull ask AlphaTauri to block Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas when they're about to lap them, or after a round of pits? Will they use Pierre Gasly and Tsunoda in that way, or will Mercedes use George Russell and maybe Nicholas Latifi, or maybe the McLaren with the partnership they have, which is unlikely, but maybe George Russell in a way to affect the race from weekend to weekend. Do you see that happening at all, especially I guess in Red Bull's case, who have a much closer tie with their sister team AlphaTauri?
I mean, I don't see any reason why they won't do that. Obviously, there might be a controversy. I mean, if things go out of hand per se, but I think they can try it. I think they can influence the championship in that way. It would be unsportsmanlike, so to speak, but then again, you're fighting for the championship. I don't think it's. I mean, as the saying goes, it's all's fair in love and war, right? So, and this is war. This is war.
I guess it is, but I don't know. Honestly, I don't see Red Bull like Christian Horner or Toto Wolff doing that. If I'm being honest with you, I just don't see it happening. There might be a controversy or a conspiracy theory arising if one of the AlphaTauris tangle with the Mercedes, or if George Russell tangles with one of the Red Bulls.
Yeah.
So we might have controversy coming from that, or a conspiracy theory, but I don't really see Red Bull and Mercedes playing that dirty. But who knows, But talking about McLaren and Lando Norris, let's talk about Daniel Ricciardo. He had a better race in Silverstone, and it seemed like he made a step forward finally after the 3 weekends. Now, early in the season, especially after Barcelona, I was of the opinion that, hey, let's not look at Daniel Ricciardo's one-off, good performance and say that he's made a step forward or he's doing better in that car. But I don't know, it was something about his performance in Silverstone which made me feel like, all right, he's taking a step in the right direction, and he's made some progress in that car. I wouldn't say he's close to Lando Norris and what Lando Norris is doing in that car, but I think Ricciardo is starting to figure out what he needs to do differently, or he's either changing his approach, but whatever he's doing seems to be starting to work for him in that McLaren car ever since the Silverstone weekend.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Daniel Ricciardo himself said that he has accepted the fact that he is not in that same position he thought he would be going into the season. And I think a change in mentality and acceptance of that fact is helping him forge his way forward better. Obviously, the P5 in Silverstone was the peak of his McLaren career so far. We want to see him go higher and higher, but as you said, that performance in Silverstone was vastly different from that in Spain, and it felt like he was on P5, like at P5 on
On
merit.
merit, because
Exactly.
he defended really well from Carlos Sainz, who we all know does really well in that Ferrari, especially on long race stints. So and it wasn't like he was racing in, where was it before Silverstone, in Austria, where you were defending into turn 4 or something like that,
Yeah.
where even where Daniel Ricciardo put up a good show, but he couldn't hold Carlos Sainz much longer. But regardless, definitely seems to me like he's made a step in the right direction. One last point that we want to discuss today will be, I think it was something from the Race Fans article that we saw earlier in the week, that as red flags become more common, should F1 ban repairs during suspensions, or just not use red flags as often as Michael Massey is using these days?
Yeah.
Go back to the old Charlie Whiting days when red flags weren't as as common.
I think, see, the red flags are being used as an entertainment element more than a safety element at this point in Formula One, because the frequency of it is. See, I have been following Formula One for a lot of years now, and I have been watching every race for 2 years, like a year and a half only. But the number of red flags I have seen in these a year and a half are more than what I have seen in the past. So there's definitely a change in mentality, a change in approach, and I think this is being done for the entertainment value and not for the sake of safety, which brings us to the point that it can be reduced, right? But if they don't want to reduce it, and I said this last season when the red flag in Monza kicked in, that they should not be able to, change tires and do repairs, because Pierre Gasly won that race because of that red flag in Monza in 2020. Obviously, he defended very well from Carlos Sainz, and that latter part of the race he performed exceptionally well. But it was that red flag that allowed him to get get a free pit stop, right? So it's definitely something the Formula One should consider.
I mean, yeah, but I would like to add a lot more to this conversation at the moment, at least, because I would like to go back and go through the rules and see when is a red flag necessary, and figure out those things, and when in the past have red flags been used, under what conditions, and things like that. Because obviously having cars on track while you're making repairs at the barriers is tricky and it's not exactly safe. But it'll be interesting to do a study and at least look into the fact that why is it just that the way we are the crashes that are happening these days are just more and more difficult to take care of. Does it take more time in general for the crashes to be taken care of and the barriers to be repaired? Is that something that has happened in the recent times? Because we've seen in the past where where we know, okay, it's going to take 45 minutes to repair a barrier because of X, Y, and Z reasons and things like that, and that is when you red flag a race because you don't want to lose a lot of track time. But
Absolutely.
if you're just putting on red flags for, let's say, 15 minutes, then is it really worth it? Obviously for entertainment purposes that makes sense, but from a racing perspective, is it something that is enhancing the racing, or is it taking away from racing in general? For especially for the teams who have an advantage in the race during that time, or are at a disadvantage that they don't know of, but might come away unscathed because of that red flag, like in Lewis Hamilton's case last weekend, when he had a wheel failure, but that was only identified and taken care of because of the red flag after Max Verstappen crashed out. So obviously there are things to consider, and I think even as fans we should look into it before we comment any further.
Yeah.
Definitely, it seems a little odd that we have had way more red flags in the recent past than ever before. But maybe this is a part of FIA's safety regulations, and the way FIA is approaching safety on track going into the future. So this might become the new normal for the next couple decades, for all we know. But definitely food for thought for our listeners and for us too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just gave my first reaction as such, but as you said, we need to look into it, and because it's a change in trend, and it's it's tricky because at the one hand there's safety of the drivers and of the repair workers and all these people. So I think it's something to think about. Yeah.
Absolutely. But that's all from my side for this weekend. Vedant, anything from you before we wrap up this podcast?
Well, no, I think Hungary is going to be a spicy affair. I think Max Verstappen wants that win back. I think Lewis Hamilton. I mean, we know that Max Verstappen wants that win. We know Lewis Hamilton wants to, continue fighting and get even on that championship. And I think it's going to be one of the spiciest races we have seen. If the pace on the two cars are similar, it's going to be very entertaining.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. But that's all from our side for this weekend. Thank you, Vedant, for joining me once again. And I'm really excited for this weekend at Hungary. And also, guys, don't forget, IndyCar is coming back in 2 weeks for the final 6 rounds of the IndyCar Championship. It is as close as ever with Alex Palou leading the championship. Scott Dixon hot on his heels with Pato O'Ward in third. So stay tuned for more motorsport action on MotorsportBaithak. Thank you for joining us.